Good morning. I'm Sol Flores, the Deputy Governor for Health and Human Services in the state of Illinois. And I'm so excited to welcome you to the launch of the Healing Illinois Project and to welcome all of you to be a part of this amazing conversation. This work has been a labor of love for the members of our team. We have and continue to fight the health crisis of our lifetimes. We have borne witness to institutional violence. We have heard the voices of those who are demanding visibility and change. And we see more clearly the systemic injustices that underpin our communities. We launch Healing Illinois not because we think that healing harm is the solution. Rather, we believe that healing, bridging, creating belonging and understanding, sympathy and empathy are necessary as parts of a more comprehensive strategy to transformation. And let me emphasize this point. We know that healing is not enough. We embark on this effort because we see the pain and distance between people and communities, and know that we need to draw people together to solve what ails us. Healing is a part of transformation, and we at the state of Illinois are committed to all of the work necessary to advance racial equity and achieve racial justice. Healing Illinois is for all communities across our great state. For those listening and watching, we are inviting you to think about ways that you can promote healing in your organization, on your block, and in your community. There is no one way to accomplish this. This initiative presents opportunities to create community-centered, inclusive, and safe spaces to talk about the impact of racism and harm in our lives and in our communities, and to design local solutions. We are excited about the possibilities, and I can't wait to see what you all do. This has been an unprecedented state effort, and yet it's long overdue. Healing Illinois gives us a chance to do something different, to address the overlapping and compounding adverse impacts that the COVID-19 pandemic, the recent killings by police, and the war on drugs have had on Black and Brown communities. Racial healing is a critical tool for all people, regardless of the color of your skin, where you live, what language you speak, to heal from the harms of racism in their own communities and across communities. We invite you to join us on this journey. I am so proud to be a part of this administration led by our governor, J.B. Pritzker. It is his vision of a strong and compassionate state that we are all working towards. It is now my pleasure to introduce Governor J.B. Pritzker.
Thank you so much, Sol. And I just want to say that your tireless work as Deputy Governor, advancing health and wellness and opportunity for all residents is really unmatched, and I'm thrilled to be working alongside you in getting things done all across the state. And to all who have joined us this morning, thank you so much for being here. And maybe more importantly, thank you for the good work that you do every single day. Your partnership makes state government better and more impactful on the lives of families across our state. And today we celebrate a new opportunity to invest in our communities together. Healing Illinois is a bold new initiative pioneered by our own Department of Human Services to support meaningful dialogue regarding race and racism. Conversations that we must have in order to move us toward the progress that we seek for our state. In order to truly fight the inequities and build a better, more inclusive Illinois, we have to be able to articulate the history of personal, institutional, and structural racism that got us here. And just as importantly, the modern iterations of personal, institutional, and structural racism that hold us back today. As a part of my commitment to healing, we've allocated $4.5 million to provide grants to community-based organizations of all sizes to help create community-centric, inclusive spaces to talk and learn and grow. And the Chicago Community Trust has stepped up as our intermediary for this work and will be distributing our funds around the state, and I'm genuinely grateful for their assistance. Healing Illinois allows communities to access the resources that they need to turn their ideas for local anti-racism work into a reality. And that focus couldn't be more timely. The devastating impact of COVID-19 on Black and Brown communities from both a health and an economic perspective can't be unraveled from the compounding nature of longstanding discrimination, the nature of the war on drugs, healthcare bias, and other harms. This initiative gives us a chance to make a real focus on healing as one of several vital components of addressing these overlapping adverse impacts on Black and Brown communities. Of course, movement toward healing is only one part of our approach to racial justice and racial equity in Illinois, because these pursuits require change in nearly every facet of our public policies and in our everyday lives. This is the moment for Illinois to reverse the harm that's been done to people and communities that have been left behind over too many generations. I'm committed to building diversity and opportunity into all aspects of our state by investing in Black and Brown communities, by reforming our broken criminal justice system, by ensuring access to jobs and resources and healthcare for every Illinoisan, and by applying an equity lens to all that we do. In all of these efforts, from our criminal justice work to Healing Illinois, to our small business investment programs, to our cannabis legalization framework, and beyond, it's my sincere hope that the nation will begin to look at Illinois as a leader in justice, in empathy, and in hope for generations to come. So thank you for allowing me to speak today. And with that, I want to introduce someone who's very important to me and to the entire state. It's really an honor to work alongside her to shape Illinois into a beacon of hope for all of our residents. So to all online, here is Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton.
Thank you so much, Governor Pritzker, for that warm introduction. When you asked me to serve as your partner in leading this great state of Illinois, I was so honored, and I continue to be so proud of the way that you think about issues and how every single day you make decisions on behalf of every resident and every community with their best interest at heart. Today is yet another example of your unique and inclusive vision for a better Illinois. Thank you to Deputy Governor Flores and Secretary Grace Hou for your leadership around Healing Illinois. This innovative approach combines grants and grace, and it will open a path towards racial healing. I want to acknowledge your teams who made today possible. And thank you to Helene Gale and the Chicago Community Trust for your support and for sharing in our vision. And of course, thank you to everyone who is taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for this incredibly critical conversation. Healing Illinois is an invitation to have a seat at the table, an opportunity to bring wisdom to the room. Hurt people, but healed people heal people. This is restorative justice in action. As a restorative justice advocate and practitioner, I know that we are all feeling what I am feeling so deeply. And that is that there has been a great deal of trauma suffered, especially over the past several months. This trauma stems from the health and economic devastation caused by COVID-19, to the killings of unarmed Black men and women, seemingly without consequence, to the vitriol in public discourse. As your Lieutenant Governor, my approach to policymaking is through a restorative justice lens, and I'm excited about this statewide grant program that is centered in love, healing, and effectuating change. Restorative justice focuses on repairing the harm that has been done to individuals, one to another, repairing the harm done by systems to whole communities, as well as the harm that has been done by failed policies that have affected residents throughout this country for generations. And we are all painfully aware of the historical harm that has been done solely based on race in our nation's systems, which we know as systemic racism. The grants provided to communities and organizations through Healing Illinois will provide proverbial tables for much needed dialogue around racial healing. We know that these will never be comfortable conversations to have, but we can have them together at the table. Understand that it will require those who have been hurt by racial inequality to relive traumatic experiences, times that Black and brown people have been oppressed or left behind. Those can be historical recollections of the Middle Passage that enslaved our ancestors and robbed them and us of our freedom and culture, or poll taxes that prevented Blacks from voting, even as today efforts to suppress the vote continue. There are also contemporary memories and traumas of being denied a job or a promotion, having relatives detained by ICE, being stopped while driving, Black or brown, watching a video of a police officer kneeling on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, or feeling unseen, undervalued, or downright angry when there is no justice for Breonna Taylor, who was shot and killed by police in her own home. How do we come to grips with all of the possibilities lost because of the obstacles and racial trauma? Well, we come to the table. Those who have not experienced racial injustice or inflicted it on others, well, that is a privilege that has allowed you to have opportunities that have been denied to others because of the color of their skin. It has allowed you to have peace of mind and voice in rooms. So I invite you to bring that voice to the table. We need you to be open and honest about having a conversation about why there are so many disparities in our society. Come to the table. This is not an easy conversation, but it is necessary, and it is necessary for healing and for understanding. Let's stop the harm. You know, Frederick Douglass once said that it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. The healing grants are a wonderful step that will create a better path, a more harmonious country for our children and our children's children, and for generations to come. But this work, it begins with each one of us. I'm excited about Healing Illinois. I'm excited about what today's conversation will spark. And I'm so proud of Illinois for setting a national example of what can be done at the state level to promote racial healing. Thank you all for your participation and the work that you do every day towards that end. And now I'd like to turn it over to Secretary Grace Hou.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor Stratton. It's such a pleasure to be in this space with you. And thank you for your words of wisdom, as always, to help guide these conversations and our state. Thank you, Governor Pritzker. Thank you, Deputy Governor Flores. It's such an honor and a privilege to serve the state with you. Your courage, your strength, and commitment to all people of Illinois is deeply inspiring. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here with us. I am the Secretary of the Illinois Department of Human Services, and I've been a part of Governor Pritzker's cabinet team since March of 2019. The Illinois Department of Human Services, also known as DHS, powers a system that provides services, programs, and benefits and opportunities for all to thrive. And in fact, we serve 1 in 3 people in our state of Illinois. And we serve and support people with disabilities, low-income families and individuals, immigrants, people who experience homelessness, opportunity youth, young children, pregnant and parenting women, people who struggle with substance use disorders. And too often, this long list of individuals are those who also are marginalized, made invisible, and deeply challenged by inequities. Our racial justice mission is to become an anti-racist organization that pursues equity and racial justice with intention, vigor, and tenacity. And in this regard, we are the right agency to bring this administration's healing vision to fruition. And we are deeply honored to be working with the Chicago Community Trust on this important endeavor. As Deputy Governor Flores discussed, healing is just one component of the state's work in our effort to become an anti-racist organization and in our pursuit of equity and racial justice. I hope you will stay with us for the next hour or so as we begin a conversation that we want you to be a part of through the chat box. I will be talking to 3 amazing Illinois residents, and they have graciously agreed to share their stories and experiences with us and inspire and help spur thinking about how to take Illinois, healing Illinois, into our own communities and neighborhoods. The discussion will be in 3 parts. We will hear from each of our 5 guests for 5 minutes. Then we will have some conversation between us, and then we will open it up to questions that I will field through the chat box. We hope to wrap up before 11:15, where then I will invite Daniel Ash, the Associate Vice President at the Chicago Community Trust, to share information about the great opportunity, the grant opportunity to be a part of Healing Illinois. So let's get started. I can't wait for you to meet our amazing guests, José, Tonika, and Dar. I'm going to start by introducing José Rico and invite him to share a little bit about his work and his journey. José Rico is the first ever Director of Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation of Greater Chicago. TRHT is dedicated to promoting healing, increasing racial equity, and fueling transformation in neighborhoods and communities across Cook County. José is a community leader and educator dedicated to working for justice and racial equity in Chicago. For the last 3 decades, José has worked in Chicago schools and community-based organizations on a national level, leading development of educational policy in the White House under President Barack Obama. And he most recently served as the Chief Partnership Officer for the United Way of Metropolitan Chicago. I've had the great opportunity to be a part of TRHT in its early days when I was the president of Woods Fund Chicago, and I'm so excited for you to meet José.
Hello, everyone.
José, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Great to see so many friends and new people that we're going to get involved in Illinois Heals. I'm José Rico, and I co-lead Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation Greater Chicago with Pilar Aldain Reed and over 300 racial healing practitioners here in the Chicagoland area. And we implement a community transformation framework that includes narrative change, racial healing, and policy change. And today I'm excited to be able to speak with you about our racial healing work, which means how we connect with others in our community to heal from the harm that is caused when we are separated and mistreated as people based on a hierarchy of human value that is placed upon us because of our physical appearance and our attributes. And this is something that unfortunately has been embedded in our country, and we want to talk about ways to challenge that false notion of hierarchy and challenge white supremacy. So I'm looking forward to doing that work as a Mexicano, as somebody who's indigenous to America and somebody who has experienced land displacement, and I've seen where my people have been challenged of their human dignity. It is very important for me to be in solidarity with African Americans who continue to suffer from this ideology of white supremacy, and that we're going to work together to challenge this false hierarchy of human value. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, José. for being here with us this morning. It's now my pleasure to introduce Tonika Johnson, who is a photographer and visual artist and native to Chicago's South Side neighborhood of Inglewood. In 2010, she helped co-found RAGE, which stands for Resident Association of Greater Inglewood, whose mission is to mobilize people and resources to force positive change in Inglewood through solution-based approaches. Within her artistic practice, Tonika explores urban segregation and documents the nuance and richness of the Black community. Her folded map project visually investigates disparities among Chicago residents while bringing them together to have a conversation. Tonika has transformed her project into an advocacy and policy influencing tool that invites audiences to open a dialogue and question how we are all socially impacted by racial and institutional conditions that segregate the city. Hi, Tonika, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here, and it just truly warms my heart to have our elected officials uplift healing and belonging, and us starting to have a conversation as residents around race and how it's impacted us all. So I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thanks. And our final guest today is Bryant, who is the Center Director for the Dream Center in Alton, whose mission is to restore the shattered dreams of anyone who has been affected by incarceration. Dar shares his story of living a life of crime for 30 years and was at one time on the top 10 most wanted list, but most importantly, his journey to redemption. This story sparked the creation of the Dream Center, which works to motivate like-minded organizations and agencies to work together for the common good and harvest the potential that lies in the dreams of lives of each returning citizen by instilling hope and restoring broken dreams. Welcome, Dar.
You're on mute. This is an extreme honor. It really is, to be a part of this important conversation. When I was asked to do this, at first I was a little not sure exactly what I could bring to the table, but after conferring with everybody, I feel like there's a definite avenue here for me to be able to bring what I have as far as what I have experienced, as far as witnessed. Being the center director of the Dream Center, I deal with individuals coming out of prison all the time, and about 90% of them are people of color, and so I have a firsthand, encounter with them, plus my own experiences as far as what I went through and what I witnessed when I was incarcerated, and watching how things unfolded and how the system showed favoritism, to the white people versus people of color, and so this is a conversation that's very well needed. I'm very, very proud to be a part of it. The Dream Center is down here in Alton, Illinois. For those of you who don't know, we're like 10 minutes from St. Louis, Missouri, 15 minutes from East St. Louis. We are a program that offers 4 different modules. One is the adult reentry. Our second module is restorative juvenile justice, where we work with the juveniles that are in detention and as they come out of detention. And we have also a QUIP program, which that's KWIP, for kids with incarcerated parents. We serve the children and their caregivers, the ones that are left behind, that have a parent incarcerated. And we also have our final program, which is called Resources for Restoration. It's R for R, this is what we call it in a short abbreviated term. And that is a coalition of about 45 different organizations in the Riverbend area that come together. And this is pre-COVID. We would meet bi-monthly, and we would just brainstorm on how to do things and how to do things better to make our community a safer place to live. And we are going to start doing a virtual version of this, and hopefully, sometime next year we'll be able to meet again in person. But this is an important topic I would like to incorporate right into the Resource Restoration meeting. This is something that if you bring the community together, and get everybody on board, that's when real healing can begin. So again, it's an extreme pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dar, for being with us. Jose, if you could please share a little bit about the work of TRHT and describe how racial healing is most definitely a key element of that, and a little bit of how you arrived at TRHT and how it threads
Yeah, so as an educator and as somebody who has spent a lot of time in our neighborhood, I got to see firsthand how, I asked myself, why is it that there is such a huge education attainment gap between Black and brown kids and white kids? Why is it that there right now in, the neighborhood that Tonika and I are from, there's a 20 and sometimes 30-year death gap compared to people that live on the North Shore of the city of Chicago? Why is it that even though our communities work hard and we have such an incredible amount of valuable resources in our communities, it seems like the wealth from our communities is leaving our blocks and going somewhere else in the city of Chicago? And so I started looking for those answers on the policy front after being many years at the community level working with people directly. And then I came across the work of Dr. Gail Christopher at one of the presentations that you were at, Grace. And Dr. Christopher is a leading national health expert that made the connection between people's physical well-being and their sense of belonging and positive connections in their physical environment. And she found that the root cause, what causes the death gap, what causes the education attainability gap, what causes the extraction, for example, Chicago, of $3 billion of wealth from Black households in the South and West sides to banks and developers in downtown. The root cause of that is that as a society, we have yet to confront this false notion that there's a hierarchy of human value based on race, that some people deserve more and that other people do not deserve that what they have. And so unfortunately, we've seen how this has played out. It's become painfully clear right now as we reach 210,000 deaths during the pandemic, that certain people's lives are simply not valued. And that right now, Black, brown, and those that are vulnerable do not have the privilege of not going to work and taking care of themselves, do not have the privilege of getting the best medicine and the best treatment, and that care is just simply not accessible to essential personnel and those of us in our community that are fighting not only the COVID-19 pandemic, but the racism 1619 pandemic. So for us and for me, I thought it was crucial as I saw immigrant families being locked up and detained and separated. And I've seen, as a Chicagoan here in Chicago, I've seen how the North Lawndale community suffered through the hands of police and killing Black people. So how can I contribute to dispelling that false notion? So right now here in Chicago and hopefully statewide, now with this initiative, we are leading a grassroots efforts. We're engaging the community-based organizations, we're engaging businesses, we're engaging neighborhood partners to really reconnect with each other and repair the relationships that have been harmed by this false notion of a hierarchy. And we know, as the governor mentioned and the lieutenant governor and the deputy governor mentioned, is that this lack of compassion is what's exacerbating a lot of the damage and a lot of the deaths that we've seen. And that in order for us to really build that compassion, we need to be able to have these conversations and then make commitments to each other to act.
Thank you, Jose. Tonika, your work is truly, I would say, breathtaking. I'd like to ask you to briefly talk about your work and how you see racial healing or elements of healing woven through your work.
Yes, racial healing is at the core of my artistic project, Folded Map. Even though Folded Map is a visual investigation of Chicago's historic segregation and how it impacts us today, The goal of the project is actually having residents who live on the same street but 15 miles apart actually meet each other to have a conversation. And for me, whom I've called the map twins, that is how they're referred to in the actual project, was also intentional because I wanted to amplify the fact that we are all related. We are all distant neighbors. We are all ultimately family in this city. And I wanted to encapsulate that by titling the participants as map twins. But what was most moving was when the map twins actually met each other. And as an artist, I'm fluid, I'm open to projects evolving. And I must admit to everyone, that was not my intention when I first started Folded Map. My intention was to photograph addresses and infrastructures on the same streets, same addresses, different sides of town, to show just the disinvestment and to provide visual proof of what disparity looks like. But as I was photographing those homes and starting to meet the individuals living in the homes, I was moved to ask them to be a part of the project. And that ultimately led to me having them meet their map twin. And it was when I introduced the first pair of map twins, Edgewater residents, Jen and Wade, met their Inglewood map twin, Nanette. And I asked them the questions of, how did you come to live in your neighborhood? Is everything that you need on a day-to-day basis accessible in your neighborhood? How much do you pay for rent? How much is your house? Is there a place of peace in your neighborhood? I just prompted them with these questions, and sure enough, they eventually forgot I was in the room and they started to have a conversation. And it was such a moving conversation because they learned so much from each other. The Edgewater North Side residents didn't really understand or realize the inaccessibility to organic food that they have in abundance. And also the Inglewood resident was just surprised at how over-resourced her new friend's neighborhood was. So they had a very touching conversation. And that's when I knew I needed to do more map twins, because their conversation to me, just as a viewer who facilitated the meeting, but I became a viewer, it modeled what these conversations need to be and how difficult and awkward they are. You're going to stumble and say the wrong things because we haven't had these conversations before, but all of them were rooted in the effort to learn. And so that is ultimately what I view as restorative. That's the process that we have to move in order to really dismantle injustices. And so in addition to the map twins, their interviews, their recorded interviews, serving as a model of what these conversations can and probably will look like, I also was encouraged to create the Folded Map Action Kit, because I could no longer facilitate a lot of map twins meeting. And people really wanted to be involved. They expressed to me that, I want to be involved. I want to help my distant neighbors, or I want to learn more about what I'm entitled to as a Chicago citizen resident, but I don't know how. And so I created the action kit for this large population who wanted to be involved in healing and learning, which is inviting them to do a self-guided run of errands in their map twin neighborhood. And so that is on the Folded Map website, but it's also an extension of the core of Folded Map, which is healing and learning.
Thank you, Tonika. Dar, I'd like to ask you, as a white man who spent time in the prison system, and who now works with returning citizens who are primarily people of color, what impact has racism had on your experience? We like to think that racial healing helps remind us of our shared humanity, how do you think racial healing can help bridge across race, geography, or other differences in your community?
Well, as a white man that was in prison, or living in Southern Illinois here, I'm not going to pretend like I understand exactly what it's like to be an inner city person of color. I don't have a clue. What I can tell you is what I've witnessed and what I saw, and friends of mine, and what they've experienced, and just dealing with this on a day in, day out basis. As growing up, I never really experienced or witnessed racism. It wasn't anything that ever came to my door. I never really experienced racism until I went to prison. And when I went to prison, I witnessed it in its rawest form. I saw how there was a definite difference in the way people of color was treated. And take, for instance, even with my co-defendant one of my co-conspirators that was arrested right prior to me being arrested. He was a man of color, a good friend of mine. We were really, really tight. And we both went up on charges. His was less than mine. His charges were a little less than mine. And we both got sentenced to prison. We went to prison. I got sentenced to 21 years, okay, but I got out in 3.5. He got sentenced to 11 and he did 8. So to give you an idea, I don't know that would have happened had he been white or I had been black. I don't know if the roles would have been reversed or what, but I see that sort of thing happen all the time. And these individuals, when they come out of prison, they sit across the desk from me, and they're angry. They're angry for the way they've been treated while they were in, and all. So they have not only being a person of color, now they're a person of color that has a prison record, and they're going to have to try to navigate through reintegration, and sometimes that's extremely difficult. So for racial healing to really take hold, that's something that we never call it racial healing. That's a new term, but we've done that all along, because we can't have any kind of racial disparity in our office at all and be able to accomplish what we accomplish, because there has to be a trust. And I think a lot of it is just getting to know individuals and understanding. Right now, most of rural America does not have a clue what people are going through. So I think clarity is an important part here, where for there to be opportunities for awareness to be brought forth. That's like with our resources for restoration meetings that we have. This is something I want to definitely incorporate into that meeting, so that we can get all the like-minded organizations in the area, on the same page, to where they're aware of some of the stuff that's going on. And and I think that's until people know what's happening. I don't think real healing is going to happen, because we have to understand, and so there has to be some clarity there. And I think what you guys are doing today and being a part of this, this is a step in that direction. This is what's going to bring awareness to rural America and to all of those that have been kind of like in the shadows and in the dark, and all they see is what they see on TV with the protests and all that. So yeah, so I think this is a great step. Thank you.
Thanks, Dar. So as I mentioned, I have had the opportunity to be an active participant in the Truth Racial Healing Transformation Initiative when I was at Woods Fund Chicago. And I have to say, somewhat surprisingly, I did find racial healing circles to be a powerful activity. I have to say I was a little cynical going into it, but I've been a part of many circles since then over the past several years. And it really has been effective in bringing people together. So Jose, I'd like you to share. I'd like you to share from your experience and describe what a healing circle is, and what would you say to those who may feel a little cynical about racial healing?
Yeah, and I could understand not only your cynicism and other people's cynicism, especially for those people that have been involved in trying to change an unjust system, right? And those that are trying to ensure that they're working to make the changes that are necessary, and possibly see a circle, is not understand how it gets us there. And so what I have seen and what we've been able to do over this last year is convene over 300 racial healing circles in the last 7 months. And this has been obviously virtually, but really what the racial healing circles are an opportunity for people to come together and connect, for them to be able to create a safe space and share their stories and be able to really, again, confront this false notion that we are different from each other, and subsequently why we are governed sometimes by different practices and different access to resources, because there's this perception that we are different from each other. And so what racial healing circles have been able to do has been able to, for us to sit down and find connections where we thought they weren't any, and be able to see each other for our own humanity. And then later on, oftentimes outside of the circle, dispel this myth that we are different, that we deserve different things, and that our humanity is valued in a different way. And so what we do is we believe these racial healing circles are for everyone, because racism affects all of us in different ways, but it affects all of us. And we really use this methodology, this of sitting together in a circle. Sometimes, during the pandemic, we noticed that people that were in communities severely affected by this pandemic, they just wanted to sit together within their community and grieve and share stories. And then we've seen that other people want to do this in their workplace, to be able to have the personal conversations to shape their racial equity agendas as part of their workplace conversations. And then we've also seen how governments and businesses want to be able, business leaders want to talk to community residents about what's happening in their neighborhoods, very much like Tonika and her project, in a safe space where they don't have to be afraid about saying the right or wrong thing. And the conversations are all personal, not theoretical, and that you could share your humanity with somebody that you would not ordinarily have a conversation with. So what these circles do in many ways is repair relationships that have been broken and separated because we have been segmented because of where we live, because of our perceived difference, and because of the proximity that we have for each other. And I say this is something that anyone can do.
So Jose, as a follow-up, if someone is interested in facilitating or organizing a truth racial healing transformation healing circle in their neighborhood, how might your work, the TRHT Greater Chicago, serve as a resource?
So like I mentioned earlier, we have close to 300 trained racial healing practitioners. These are people that are very skilled in having these conversations, setting them up. So contacting us at transformshy.com, we will be able to do that. But the two other ingredients that I would say that you will need anybody is just if you have people that are willing to connect with each other, create a safe space to share their stories. That's a very important component. And then the follow-up is if hopefully what will come out of that is a shared commitment to continue not only this conversation, but some actions that will be able to help someone in your circle with an issue or something that's come up that people want to make a change. And so it really takes a group of people that want to be able to have these conversations and connect, and then follow up with the compassion that is going to happen after you share the stories with something that's concrete. And at TRHT Chicago, we'd be more than happy to help facilitate those conversations with you throughout wherever you may be.
Thanks, Jose. So Tonika, it sounds like storytelling is a part of TRHT. And I would say it has been historically, since the beginning of mankind and womankind, humankind, a way for people to connect. And so, Tonika, can you share another story about how you've seen your art spark connections and in particular bridge racial divides in creating that interpersonal connection? And then you as an organizer and activist, how do you see this leading to broader systems change?
Yes, just to give you an example of how personal narratives and sharing your personal narratives can help bridge divides and build connections. I'll refer to the first MAP twins again, Jen, Wade, and Nanette, Edgewater residents and Inglewood residents. They met through Folded Map, and they were strangers before. And they have sustained their interaction, their relationship for 3 years now. And it has blossomed into an actual friendship that I did not foresee or even require. So much so that during the pandemic, they decided to really put their friendship together to extend Folded Map and created block twins. They introduced their neighbors to gardening on Nanette's block in Inglewood. And this was July, in the middle of July, they decided to do this. And to see all of these different people coming together from the opposite sides of town, not only meet each other and come to Inglewood, disrupting the segregation that way, but also them talking to each other. While they were gardening, they were talking to neighbors, other neighbors in Inglewood. The neighbors in Inglewood were getting to know the neighbors in Edgewater. And they really had a beautiful event and moment, but more importantly, a learning experience. It's only when you get to know people that you can actually start to confront the stereotypes that you may have. And you can actually begin to question, how did you start thinking that? Or to just prevent yourself from thinking further that way. And I know for me, having gone to Lane Tech High School on Chicago's North Side, but it being a deeply diverse high school in the 90s, my friendships with so many different kids of different nationalities really taught me a lot about Chicago and then the specific issues that different nationalities face. If it weren't for my friends who were Latino, I wouldn't have learned about the difficult process of becoming a citizen in the United States. But it's because of them sharing their stories with me about their relatives, their mothers, their grandparents, that I was able to see myself in their struggle. And that's really what it's all about, you know, connecting, sharing your personal history, and then also connecting your personal family history to our larger history in this country. And so that's why it's really important to come together to share your stories, but also I am very firm on the fact of how race, ethnicity, and geography shape our relationships that we have with each other and to our city. So even beyond talking to each other, I think it's really important to experience someone else's neighborhood, to experience what and how they navigate their own space. Because what you learn when you pair that with what they've shared with you, and you pair that with walking and moving through where they live, you just learn so much more. It expands your understanding that will allow you to become a better person and see how you can be helpful in our collective effort to fight for social justice. And so that is why I think, you know, place-based dialogue and narrative sharing is really critical, because laws and policies actually haven't gotten us to a place where we want to be. And so we have to make it personal. It has to become personal. I think we all know that personal relationships really do transform what people think, what they fight for, and deepens their empathy.
Thank you, Tonika. Dar, we heard the Lieutenant Governor talk about restorative justice, and I know that a lot of what the Dream Center pursues and advances is restorative justice, in particular for young people as well. And so I know that you are building an initiative within the Dream Center, and then you also lift up that you are designing unique elements that you will embed in this model. Can you talk a little bit about what restorative justice is for folks and what unique elements that you are designing?
Yeah, restorative justice in a sense is righting the wrong, rather than just strictly a punitive type approach of punishment. That doesn't right the wrong. That doesn't. There's no victim satisfaction with that. And so restorative justice is all about healing, and so it kind of falls right in line with Healing Illinois. So that's, as far as that in a nutshell. That's what restorative justice is. But it's a lot more. You expand on that a great deal. But the Dream Center's restorative justice program is a modified version. There's some things that for us did not really work with the original version. Take for instance the circle. We have we find that one-on-one mentorship works a lot better, because dovetailing on what Tonika just said, it's all about relationships. It's about getting to know each other and understanding. And when we have an individual come in and they sign up for the program, whether it be adult or juvenile, we find that we have a lot more success with juveniles than we do adults, because as we know that juveniles between the ages of 14 and 18 they're still in their formative years, and they can be redirected a lot easier than what an adult can. So that's why we have a restorative justice juvenile program. And when we assign a mentor to this individual, he's not just somebody to check in with or to keep track of, or they build a rapport right off the bat. That is the most important thing, and getting to know the individual and getting to know their hurts, and what got them to where they're at, and what they can do to change the path that they're on, from a path of drugs and poverty to one to success and prosperity. And this is something that we focus on the individual at the core. What drives them, and that's big. And I think that is something that if we all just took a moment to get to know one another a little better and understood what each other's going through, I think that it goes a long way, not just with the juveniles, but with the adults as well. So our program, it's like we were talking about a commitment of excuse me just a second here. I lost you for a minute. Sorry, my video just went out. I don't know if it went out on your end, but it went out on my end.
We can still see you and hear you. Thank you, Dar.
All right. The goal of the our program is to increase juvenile offenders' understanding in the personal harm caused by the crime. So they have to understand what harm it is they did. Now, since we're not doing the circle, what we want to do is make sure that this individual has every opportunity to experience the cause and effect. So what we'll do is do a video of either the victim or the family member, like whoever it was that was hurt in this individual's actions, and that way we can not only present it to the individual, we can also pause and we can talk about it as we go. Where if you have a live circle or a one-on-one with the victim and the individual, there's not really that opportunity to pause and intersect. So a lot of times we have a hard time getting the victim there to the table, and so this way with the video we're able to actually present it to them a little bit better and a little bit more effectively that way. So anyway, there's a lot more we can do on this whole subject, and it's hard to do in a couple of minutes, but if you'd like to log on to the website, but definitely there's a lot more information there as well.
Yes, absolutely. This is what we're trying to do, is give folks a taste of what it of the results of racial healing work. But I absolutely agree with you, Dar. You can't learn how to do this work in just a few minutes or even an hour. And so Dar talks about work with young people, and Tonika, I know that you work with young people as well. And so there's definitely not one size fits all, and we understand that. But how have you seen social justice or healing spaces impact young people, differently or similarly to adults? So what advice would you give folks who are trying to make a decision around how to engage young people and or how to engage adults in this work?
I am not only and have been a teaching artist, but most recently I did another investigation, artistic investigation, speaking to teenagers, Black and brown teenagers, around their sense of belonging or not belonging. Ultimately, the locations in Chicago where they've been made to feel like they don't belong or have been racially profiled. And that project is online, belongingchicago.com. But it was through that project that I began to understand and talk to a lot of youth, not only the ones who participated in the project, but also the youth that are part of youth-led activist groups like BYP 100, Good Kids, Mad City, Asada's Daughters. And what I've observed is that they actually find healing in the pursuit of social justice. The organizing that they do, the meetings that they have to organize around certain issues, how they decide the issues that they want to engage on, is healing for them. And I think adults would definitely benefit from adopting that kind of mindset of viewing the actual work as a healing space. Because a lot of the youth-led activist groups, through their protests and their coming together to plan for whatever it is they're going to engage in, they realize that they are individuals, but they also realize that their experiences aren't individualistic. They recognize that their experiences are shared with others who care and who want to be their ally. And so I think that our youth in this city, our young adults, we definitely should uplift their voices because they are holders of critical knowledge of issues in this city. And I think a report that clearly encapsulates this perspective is a report done by University of Chicago called Gen Forward. And I definitely was inspired by this report as I was doing my project Belonging. But that is one of the primary ways in which I think youth seek and have healing, is when they actually do work together to address social injustices. And I think that's a valuable way to kind of view this work. And that's something that us adults, from time to time, we don't hold that perspective at top of mind. But there is healing in getting to know people and to share stories and to also come together to dismantle these social injustices. And I think that that is a very unique perspective to Black and brown youth organizers that we would benefit from. And so that's how I think they have interpreted or navigated specifically this year, but even prior to that.
Thanks. And so Jose, I think if you could share a little bit, because I think that you also have racial healing practitioners who are young people. And so I think even beyond that, what advice would you give to people who want to organize a racial healing activity for the first time? What should people be sure to incorporate? And, I've heard from folks who are maybe considering this for the first time for their organization, that they're scared of saying the wrong thing or offending someone. They don't know what the right terms are. How do you create a safe, brave space to overcome these hurdles. And I would ask you, Jose, to maybe start off by answering some of those questions, and then I'd also would really appreciate Tonika and Dar to jump in afterwards if you have thoughts about, for those individuals who are scared of saying the wrong thing and actually doing more harm than repair. And for all of our audience members, I invite you to put into the chat box any questions that you have for the panelists, and I'll be sure to try to share those as well. So Jose.
Yes, and thank you for that question, because I think that is one of the, biggest and most frequent question that we receive when we organize racial healing circles is oftentimes people are hesitant because they want to say the right thing. And the thing, or they don't want to say the wrong thing. And the one thing that we just want, I just want to quickly dispel is that the racial healing circles are not places for you to learn what to say or for you to come out saying certain things. That's not what that is. What I tell people is that we create spaces. This is what the trained racial healing facilitators do, is they create safe spaces where we haven't heard anyone say something that has been out of bounds, because not only is this space created, has some guardrails, but more importantly is that everything is based on your personal experience and you're connecting with somebody else. And so, the advice that I would have is experience a racial healing circle, come with an open heart and with an open mind, and explore how vulnerable you want to be able to share your story and also connect with somebody that you may not have had that opportunity otherwise. And so I have been, hosting circles with corporate CEOs here in Chicago, with individuals on street corners here in Chicago, and everybody in between that, once they leave the circle, they often tell us, I had no idea that that's what you were talking about. I assumed it was a class on Racism 101. I did not know I was going to be able to learn about my humanity and through connecting with someone else. And I understand why it's so important to connect with other people. So again, I think in these times that we live in, and people want to be able to talk about race, and I think that is really important. But the way we organize the circles is to be able to bring your story and your experience. And sometimes race is a part of that, but not all the time. And there isn't any fear of saying the right thing because it's coming, the wrong thing because it's coming from you. And so what you are willing to share and your ability to want to connect and repair, again, the harm that is caused by us being separated for a variety of different reasons, that's what we want people to come with. And that's what we are willing to facilitate. Back to Tonika, what we've seen, we have 100 young racial healing practitioners that we trained this summer between the ages of 18 and 26. And they've held dozens of racial healing circles. They're actually holding racial healing circles with student groups in high schools and in community groups right now as we speak. We have 26 racial healing circles happening this week here in the city of Chicago. And what young people tell us is that they actually don't have a lot of the baggage that older people have around these separations, and they are actually more willing to identify the systematic structures and policies of racism that are institutionalized versus the interpersonal. And I think that that's one of the benefits of the racial healing circles, is that we're able to get through our perceptions of who's a racist and who's not a racist. What we say is we're not here to identify the racist. We are here to really understand that racism is in the air, it's in the institutions that we work in, it's in the communities that we live in, and we have to be able to identify that and change those structures through the relationships that we build together. And young people are actually a lot better of seeing that and actually have been a lot more effective in organizing against that. And so we want to be able to increase the capacity for us to not only see the systematic racism, but to actually work together against it.
Thanks, Jose. So Tonika or Dar, do you have anything to add to that for folks who may be scared to offend as they wade into these conversations?
Yeah, I have a somewhat different approach only because my work explicitly highlights race and segregation. So conversations that I facilitate or presentations, I literally invite and welcome people to possibly saying the wrong things. Once you allow people to accept the fact that you are going to say something offensive, you just accept it and own it. And once you do that, surprisingly, people become more aware and, kind of censor themselves, but they're more sensitive to listening to someone else. So I, strive to create a space where people know that I might even say the wrong thing. I had to actually help people get comfortable with saying Black, white, Latino, Asian. People didn't even know how to refer to Black people. I don't know, should I say African Americans? I'm like, just say what it is you feel like you should say. And then we'll get through it. Because there is, the teacher part of me is saying, you have to say the wrong thing in order to learn what the right thing is. And that's just the truth of it. And these conversations about race can be difficult, but if you just remind people that we're all in this space because we want to work together, then we have to give each other some wiggle room. We have to give each other some leeway because we don't all know the right thing, the appropriate thing to say. And so I just want people to give themselves permission to stumble and say the wrong thing and allow yourself to get corrected. As simple as that. I facilitate a lot of conversations and I get corrected. I don't have it right. And we all have to just learn from each other and give ourselves the permission to not be perfect. That's pretty much it.
I love that, Tonika.
Thank you, Tonika. Because I tell you what, saying the wrong thing, that's my forte.
And a lot of people probably learn when you get corrected,
Yeah.
So it's a teachable moment.
It's funny you said that because I was coming into this meeting and really seriously, I'm one of them. Should I say Black? Should I say African American? Should I say people of color? I really, this is a learning experience for me. And I think it's important for my organization for this to, become integrated into what we do here. So yeah, I really appreciate the whole giving me a pass, so to speak, for saying the wrong thing, because inevitably I will. But like Jose was talking about, I noticed you guys talk a lot about programs in Chicago. How about downstate here? I mean, we're like I said, we're in Alton. We're kind of like that forgotten stepchild down here. We're still a community between the two counties, St. Clair and Madison, of 500,000 people, and we about 30% African American in Alton. So it's just as far as Alton goes, and then of course East St. Louis is 97% African American. So there is a need for this program down here, and I'm not for sure, as far as Jose's program is what I'm talking about. do you have a crew coming down this way, or do you have a crew down here, or some of your instructors that you were talking about, Jose?
So yeah, so one of the great things about the program that is launching is that we're actually launching a training session for people that are interested in becoming racial healing practitioners statewide. And like I mentioned, we have almost 300 in Cook County. We're going to launch a training for people outside of Cook County, focusing in Central and Southern Illinois. So we want to be able to do that. And then for organizations that are interested in doing this work, that's part of the grants program that we're going to hear soon. And we will be able, because of we're in the pandemic, we will be able to help facilitate those programs through Zoom, and looking forward to working with you, Dar, and anybody throughout the state.
Thank you.
Thanks. So we had a couple of questions here from folks who are listening and watching around. We talked about how, your experiences working with young people, but how any advice or guidance as to how we work with older adults?
Was that question directed to anyone in particular, or is that just
any one of the three of you?
I will say that the organization that has helped me learn how to deal with the elder population is my work with RAGE, Resident Association of Greater Inglewood, because Greater Inglewood has a nice percentage of elder population who have deep history and roots and opinions and stories. So if you think storytelling will help us heal, then definitely connect with your elders, because they have the stories and they don't mind sharing them. And RAGE has definitely taught me the value of paying attention and listening to the opinions of our elders and incorporating them into our efforts, and really considering how to be more inclusive. That is why RAGE uses the phone still, making actual messages delivered through phone and not just email, because we recognize that potentially exclude elders. When we have events, definitely considering any mobility barriers that they might have, and bringing them at the table. And so just always remembering that, they have value, they have opinions, and they can help guide us in a direction by providing that historical perspective and sharing what their experiences were when they were younger as opposed to now. They can see gaps that we don't. And so I definitely value working with our elder population and getting their opinions on things. I unfortunately don't have any of my grandparents. I haven't had them for a long time. So I deeply value engaging and working with our elder population, just primarily because they are a wealth of knowledge. They are living, walking history, and we need to uplift and amplify that.
So we have a question from Vivian, who asks, how do you handle racial injustice in the workplace, which caused the tear down in the community of workers of specific agencies or companies? Jose, you talked about that you've received some outreach from folks who work in the business community. Can you share some of your experiences in this regard?
Sure, and this is obviously not just in the business community. We do a lot of the work in the nonprofit sector also. And I think first we just need to understand that our workplaces are just reflective of our overall society. And oftentimes we clearly see these policies and practices that are, when you look at them, are discriminatory and racist. Like, for example, one of the policies and practices that one of the business leaders that I work with around the application process for somebody to apply for a job at a company, the question about asking for the criminal background check, and Dar probably very familiar with this, is like, there is no reason why in certain jobs you need to ask that question, or you need to ask whether somebody who's a returning citizen that might want to be able to work at an entry-level position, why that policy is there besides to exclude a certain group of people. And so one of the things that we found when we do this type of our racial healing circles, and also want to just put out there that we don't hardly ever do one racial healing circle. It's usually a series of circles with a specific goal to help the organization accomplish a strategy. So for example, a lot of the places that we work with, the strategy of the organization is to develop a community impact agenda and an internal racial equity agenda. And so that's the strategy, that is the end results. They want to see how the organization, they can make a racially equitable impact in the community, and how they could advance a racial equity agenda, usually with their employees and their volunteers within the organization. So they have that work, and they bring in racial healing circles. Sometimes we do 10. One of the organizations we did 30 racial healing circles with that organization to help the organization have these conversations, identify these policies, and then work through putting in or taking out policies and procedures that they have determined to hold them back, advance a racial equity agenda. The reason why these racial healing circles are so important, as we've been talking about here, is that it brings back the human perspective, the stories of what sometimes we don't ever get to share, our background and our experience, and how something that somebody thought was very innocent in a workplace, how that may affect somebody that does not have a home, or that somebody that may not be able to understand a certain policy or procedure because of where they come from, or somebody that is a returning citizen that impacts, that a policy impacts them adversely. And so these racial healing circles help people not only understand people's stories, but then be able to build a relationship. And that's, I think, that what we've all been talking about is we need to be able to build those relationships so we can not only have compassion and build trust, but that all leads to change. And that all leads to the change that we all want to be able to see. So again, you know, our circles are part of a methodology that, coupled with a strategy and an outcome, is what allows us to be able to change policies at a workplace that people from the top and from the bottom want to be able to change. And that is how we have been using this in many of the organizations here in Chicago.
Thanks, Jose. So, you know, this Healing Illinois grant opportunity is opened up to all organizations across the state. And Dar, you know, we are the state of Illinois, we work for the state of Illinois, and we value and recognize every corner of the state. So we want to be sure that folks who are outside of the Chicagoland area, the Cook County area, are a part of this, absolutely. And so I've been picking up through the course of our conversation some tips or some guardrails or parameters, right, for folks who want to engage in these types of activities. Allow yourself to be corrected. Give yourself permission to be imperfect. And at the same time, I recognize that there are trainings, right, for individuals who want to be a racial healing practitioner through the TRHT. The Lieutenant Governor mentioned that she is in fact a restorative justice practitioner who has gone through training. So there are opportunities for training, and I'd love for you, Jose and Dar, to talk a little bit about the training. But also I want to make sure that folks understand that you can apply to have activities that are outside of, you know, having trained or officially sanctioned practitioners, as long as it's done in a safe and productive way. And so I also think about, Tonika, your reference to the folded map action kit. And so with all of this, I guess I'm asking the three of you a very practical question, which is, how do I get something like this started? How do I make the decision as to whether I want to engage a TRHT practitioner, or maybe I should use the folded map action kit and do it on my own, or should I engage a restorative justice practitioner? So that's kind of how, that's my question. How do I get started, and how do I know which avenue I should be pursuing? And so maybe if I could start with Tonika, on how you've seen this kind of organically blossom from your work in unexpected ways.
Yeah. I would say, always look inward and think about yourself as a person. Everyone isn't an extrovert. I actually am not, which is why Folded Map was going to only be photography of addresses. But I was called and moved to step outside of my introverted artistic self to talk to people. But it was an evolutionary process. It took over a year for me to, be the facilitator of Map Twins. I started out as a photographer wanting to just only do photos. And so you really have to allow yourself the permission of starting where you're at, which is why I thought about the Folded Map Action Kit, not only just because of my own capacity, but, I want to cater to people who aren't as extroverted, people who might need a more personalized, private learning pathway. And I felt that, offering or inviting people to run errands in neighborhoods around Chicago, and then offering them an opportunity to share their experience online for others to see would be a great way for people who are unsure or just a little bit more introverted to still learn and contribute to others learning about Chicago as a whole. And then beyond that, that's why partnerships are really important, because if they follow me, then they're now going to learn about THRT and they're going to learn about DAR's work. And so that's why it's really important for me as artists to make those connections and partnerships so that I can cater to the different personality types that follow Folded Map, because I am well aware everyone is not ready to just sit in a group of people and hear their stories. Everyone is not ready for that. So that's why, we need to have a variety of ways of engaging and entering into this work. But at the center of it, keeping it personal. And sometimes Instagram is a way for people to enter into this deeper understanding by following different people outside of your social network that really can show you another side that you probably wouldn't have experienced otherwise. So I'm a fan for all of the things: social media, books, action kits, racial healing circles, all of it. So yeah.
Thanks, Tonika. Dar, can you expand a little upon what it means to be a restorative justice practitioner, and when should restorative justice practitioners be engaged for work?
Like Tonika was saying, you have to look in yourself, look within yourself, and ask yourself why you want to in the first place. Because that's everybody here at the Dream Center has lived experience, been affected by the criminal justice system. So when you have that, when you've been affected by something, you have a lot more passion towards that. And myself, whenever if somebody would have got a hold of me when I was 14, 15 years old, and maybe to help put me on a different path, things might have turned out different for me. So. It has to do with just examining yourself. And I would suggest if you're really interested in getting involved, if you've had life experience with the criminal justice system, I would suggest getting a hold of an organization in your area that works with juvenile justice or restorative justice, and volunteer. You start out volunteering, and you have to learn what it's about, and then the one-on-one rapport building with these individuals. That's a big, huge part of it. Like I said, without relationships and without community, it doesn't really go anywhere. And so I would say, like I said, if you're really interested in becoming, getting into restorative justice, whether it be for juveniles or adults, get a hold of somebody in your area, an organization in your area that is already doing it. Volunteer there, learn, and then from there you can go ahead and get certified. There's several organizations that offer certifications. So anyway, that's about all I have. Like I said, I would just resort back to relationships and community, and having everybody get together, understand what's going on, and that's going to be a big part of it for us down here. Is whenever we have our next restorative justice meeting, resources for restoration meeting, and we bring this to the table and get the different organizations in our area on board with it. So,
Thanks, Dar. So Jose, how do you, if one wants to be a trained racial healing practitioner, how do they do that? Jose? I see he's left. Okay, so I'm sure we will have him back. I do know that they are frequently providing racial healing practitioner training that you could access on their website, and we will be sure to send out information. There's so much good information in the chat box, about restorative justice, about Tonika's new belonging work. So I hope folks will take some time to scroll in and out. I see here that there is a training for practitioners coming up on November 6th and 7th. So if there are any questions, we will direct folks to the. Oh, okay, Jose's back. So Jose, the question is, how do you become a racial healing practitioner?
So yes, so there, as you were mentioning, there is a training that's coming up for people statewide in November. If you live in the city of Chicago, there's a sign up. We actually have a course at City Colleges of Chicago where you could sign up. And back to what we were talking about earlier, it's not we want to be able for people to have these conversations in as many ways and as many forms. The one thing I do want to stress, though, especially if you become a racial healing practitioner or you want to do this work, it really helps for you to be connected to this community. I cannot tell you I appreciate the community that I've been able to build with Tonika. I'm looking forward to being able to have meetings with Dar and continue to do this work with him, because this work is also about our own healing. And it's also about us recognizing the trauma that racism has impacted us. And as racial healing practitioners, we have to be able to practice not only self-care, but community healing amongst ourselves. And it's always great to be able to share experiences, learn from each other, and more importantly, support each other during this work, because it is emotional work, it's hard work, and we need to restore ourselves. And so I'm also very glad that these resources that are being provided help for that restoration of our spirit and of ourselves and our humanity. So please attend and sign up for these things, but also make sure that you're connected with each other when you embark on this work.
Okay, I'm going to wrap up this amazing conversation and ask our guests to really briefly share with us, what is one thing that you hope comes out of these Healing Illinois grants?
I can just immediately say just connectivity, you know, for us to see the amazing value of getting to know each other in a variety of ways, and not just Chicago residents, but, you know, Chicago to Illinois. You know, I have family in East St. Louis, and I love learning about all of Illinois, not just Chicago, but definitely just more connectivity. If anything, if you get to know one person out of all of these potential opportunities that will come forth from these grants, that's just valuable. One person that you get to know who has a different lived experience than you, someone that you share the same passion or interest with that is different from you. That is what I would hope for all people to get out of all of the engagements that will come forth in the future, because it will show you the beauty of diversity, and it will show you how we can really change our world through the relationships, the friendships that we have, because laws and policies just haven't gotten us to the point where we want to be yet. But it's those relationships that will.
Thanks. Jose, what would you like to see come out of this?
So what I've, the vision that we have is that we are able to build that solidarity across communities and across people. I want to be able to fight and build a solidarity with people from Alton, Illinois, around the issues that affect them. I want to be able to build solidarity around reparations for Black folks here in the state. I want to be able to build solidarity to be able to fight that no human being is illegal and that the lands of Indigenous people are returned and restored. And so I want to build that solidarity because, as we've been talking, that is how we are going to push and accomplish the criminal justice reform that is needed. That solidarity is how we're going to push for environmental policy that does not, impact Black and Brown and disenfranchised communities throughout the state. That's going to help us push the equitable funding formula even further than it is now. And we had a great start for that, but we want to be able to push that further. That separation is what's keeping these policies from passing. And so I hope to build that solidarity across the state, because we know that there are more things that bind us together as people from Illinois than keep us apart.
Thank you for that. Dar, your closing thoughts on what you hope will come of this work.
Well, personally, just what I've gotten out of it so far, it's what I would hope would, for everyone, and that's awareness. An understanding that, we don't know what everyone's going through. Most of us don't know what down here we don't know what it's like, necessarily to live in, Southside Chicago. And people in Chicago don't understand that we don't really understand. Down here we don't have it's apples and oranges. It really is. And so even though racial tension is everywhere, we down here, we need to understand, we need a greater understanding. So if anything, if through this program, if we're able to bring awareness to our community and be able to instill some empathy to where people can actually, relate and, have a better understanding about what's going on up there and throughout the state, I think that's going to be huge. And I think that's whenever when you get to the grassroots, you start dealing, get your non-for-profits in the area all on board with this program. I think that's whenever you're going to see some real healing happen down here and throughout the state.
Thank you, Dar. Thank you, Tonika. And thank you, Jose, for your inspiration and for sharing your work with us. And I believe your ideas has spurred amazing thinking for those who have had the opportunity to listen. But before we close, I'd like to welcome our partner at the Chicago Community Trust to briefly discuss the grant opportunity to bring healing activities to your hometown. I know there are some questions in the chat box that we weren't able to address. I think in particular, do you have to be a part of, organization? I think if you have interest and you have questions, we have an email address on the healing.illinois.gov website. So we don't want anybody to feel like there are barriers to this, but there are rules that we have to follow. So if you have questions as to how you can participate or your organization, please don't hesitate. And it's my pleasure to introduce Daniel Ash, who's Associate Vice President of Community Impact at the Chicago Community Trust. Daniel is previously served as the Trust Marketing Officer, and before that, I think I actually met Daniel when he was Vice President at Chicago Public Media. Daniel's professional career has been focused on developing and using marketing and communication tools to advance social causes. He has worked exclusively in the nonprofit sector on issues including poverty, adolescent health, and HIV/AIDS cure and prevention. He went to the Harris School of Public Policy at the University of Chicago, and he also completed a Woodrow Wilson Fellowship at Princeton University. I'm so excited that we are able to partner with the Chicago Community Trust and be able to work with Daniel and the team there. And he's going to share with us some brief information about how you can work with us, how you can put some of these Healing Illinois resources to work in your neighborhood. Daniel?
Thank you, Secretary. So first of all, one word, wow. Thank you to the panelists, Dar, Tonika, Jose. Quite frankly, I needed to hear that conversation because sometimes when you're really close to this work, you need to be re-inspired, and you most certainly did that for me this morning. I want to begin by sort of acknowledging the visionary leadership of Governor Pritzker, Lieutenant Governor Stratton, Deputy Governor Flores, and Secretary Hou. On behalf of the Trust, our staff, our board, my boss, our CEO, Helene Gill, we are thrilled to be part of this journey, this partnership to transform the state. Our role is to be a facilitator, to make sure that we get these resources to the communities statewide so they can begin the work. If you want to participate, here's some couple of things I want to highlight that you need to do. One, as Secretary Hou noted, you should visit healingillinois.gov. That's home base for getting all the information about this grant opportunity. Two, we will be hosting the next information session on October 15th from 12:30 to 2 p.m. That's an opportunity where we can really dive in and answer all the sort of technical questions you may have. A couple of things I want to highlight in terms of that process. One, this is an opportunity for 501c3 nonprofits, right? And there are ways in which we're connecting folks to the right folks so they can do this work. So I want to be real clear that we really want this to be inclusive. Two, we've designed this program to be community-centered, meaning that we're not dictating sort of what a community should do. We want each community, be it Effingham, be it Rockford, be it Cairo, be it Carbondale, be it the South Side of Chicago. We want each community to decide where they want to start, where they want to go with this work. So I just want to say that to all of the folks who are participating, that there's broad flexibility with this initiative. I wanted a couple of words about the process. There are two funding cycles. The first one is currently open, and it will close October 14th. And then there will be a second funding cycle that will open October 15th, and that cycle will close at the end of the month, October 30th. To be really clear, we have two cycles in order to allow us to efficiently respond and grant dollars out. But I want to be real clear that organizations can only draw down one grant. We often get that question, like, well, since there are two cycles, can I get two grants? We just have two cycles just so we can sort of keep the ball moving, if you will, on this initiative. I want to say a few words about one initiative that the Trust created that we're going to put in service to Healing Illinois, and that's on the table. On the Table, which you can learn more at onthetable.com, is a platform that we created to encourage civic dialogue, civic reflection, civic connectedness. The idea is quite simple, is that we ask people to host conversations around a meal. We ask people to keep these conversations intimate, so 8 to say 12 folks. And we again allow those conversations to unfold in the way that makes sense for the community. We will be launching sort of a new iteration, if you will, of On the Table as part of Healing Illinois. And on onthetable.com, we will supply a steady diet of content that will help people organize their conversations. Again, I lift that up because it's really, really important to know that the local community has to decide where they want to start. Our job is to be in service to you, to help you get on the journey and then move forward. I want to sort of close by sort of highlighting a very simple point. One, this initiative is about the journey. For some of you, this may be the first step. And again, we at the Trust, along with our partners at the state and others who are doing this work, are here to help you take that first step. For others, it's about going deeper, about going farther. And we are here to sort of support you in that work as well. If we do it, and we all do it right, we all get on the journey, we all begin the process. You know, our job also through initiatives like On the Table is to make sure we create intersections for those journeys to cross. As Doris said, we have to, from a statewide perspective, begin to understand one another. And again, Healing Illinois, it's a wonderful opportunity to achieve that. So with that, I'm gonna turn it back to Secretary Hou. And again, Secretary, let me just restate the next information session so people have it. October 15th, 12:30 to 2. The information about that information session can be found at healing.illinois.gov. Back to you, Secretary.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you so much for your partnership and the partnership of the Chicago Community Trust. I hope you found this to be an inspiring morning, and I echo Daniel's thoughts. Wow. Thanks to everyone who joined us, either as a speaker or in the audience. And we invite you to continue the conversation in your own communities and to consider applying for a Healing Illinois grant. Of course, thanks to our Governor, J.B. Pritzker, Lieutenant Governor Stratton, Deputy Governor Flores, for their leadership and commitment to racial equity. Again, our partnership with the Chicago Community Trust, we could not do it without you. The amazing Tonika, the amazing José, and the amazing Dar. Of course, the Healing Illinois team at DHS, the Lieutenant Governor's staff, the Red Group. Please visit the Healing Illinois website. We're going to figure out how to put more resources and information there that has been streaming through the chat so that folks can see what other resources are available. Follow us on Twitter at Healing Illinois and on Instagram at Healing Illinois. Thank you so much, and we can't wait to see what you come up with. Thank you, and have a super day. Bye-bye.